Dean, what's happening, brother?
Not too much, man. Thanks for having me here.
Dude, we're so pumped to have you in the office, man. We were saying a little bit outside. This is a really cool experience for us. We know this is your second podcast, but it's cool for us because we've been such huge fans that you guys have built at Heart and Soil. The three of us have all been on our own health journeys. We've all gone carnivore, animal-based. We've tried everything. And when I was trying to heal my stomach, I know you've had similar issues, which we'll get into. Heart and Soil was a huge part of it for me, where I was going carnivore. And then once I learned about organs, I was living in New York, so I didn't really have access to like actual fresh cow organs. So I started buying your capsules, the gut health capsule, and then the straight organ capsule. And it was such a game changer, man. So we're so pumped to have you here. When we met you, it was October in the fall. So I'd quit my corporate job a month before to go all in on the podcast, which is something I know that you know a lot about going all in. So this is a cool moment for us for a couple of reasons. And we're really grateful that you decided to join us today.
Amazing. First off, congrats on the improvements in your health. That I know that journey well. I had ulcerative colitis at a really young age in college, and we could get into that. But every time I see somebody just kind of push through that and think about things a little bit differently and take their health into their own hands, it's just an amazing thing to see. So congrats. Yeah, man, when we met back then, I think you asked me to be on the podcast maybe 2 or 3 times. And I said no every time. This is my second one.
As I do, I just keep texting.
We're persistent.
Yeah.
But it's important though, man. It's like, I know obviously Paul is much more publicly facing. Yeah. You're the CEO of the brand. You're building this incredible culture, this incredible business. There's so much wisdom and lessons to be able to pull out of it. And I know you're going to be going on a little bit of a podcast circuit out of this. So we feel really grateful that this is going to be episode number 2 for you.
Dude, I'm glad to be here. A little nervous, right? This kind of goes back to maybe a leadership principle. And it's like, you have to, whatever you're preaching, you have to do yourself.
Totally.
Yeah. And I'm constantly telling the team, hey, growth happens on the fringes of being comfortable. So you have to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That's the only way you grow, but with intention. And I kind of looked at myself, I'm like, I've been turning down podcasts for about a year now. And there's probably some things through my experience, whether it's building the business, whether it's my experience dealing with ulcerative colitis and different health issues, that I could share with people, and I'm uncomfortable about it. So when I had that realization, I'm like, I'm telling people to do this. I got to do it myself. I got to get outside of my comfort zone, go on a few podcasts, and just bite the bullet and do it.
Well, my favorite part of your story is you getting involved with Heart and Soil, because it relates to kind of where we were coming from. Both of us have corporate jobs. Brett was in sales. I was in finance. No real background in like the health industry at all, just coming in blind. And so that's like an intimidation. There's a lot of intimidation entering a new industry, but then trying to start something in a new industry altogether. There's just multiple layers to it. And so it was cool that we shared that experience. And you are also just kind of in at the ground floor, willing to take like no salary for the first few months, really just kind of like your heart was in it. You were mission focused. So it's just really cool to see that. And then also how that is reflective in what you guys are building at Heart and Soil. Like, there is a lot of heart into the brand. You guys are telling stories, trying to get the message out there. So it's just that was the thing that stuck out to me with your story, and I just appreciate that. Like, you put the foot on the line and was just ready to put your skin in the game. So
yeah, man, it's the feeling's mutual. You guys inspire me. I mean, to be able to do what you did, and I'm sure you're doing all right in your corporate positions, right? Yeah. It's hard to leave that. It really is. You get comfortable, and pretty soon, if you don't think about it, 10 years has passed and you're a little more comfortable, and it becomes harder and harder to make a leap. And it's applaudable for somebody to recognize, hey, you know what, maybe I have more to offer here. Maybe the value that I can offer the world is more than this particular job. And you know what, I'm really into this thing, and I feel compelled to share it with other people. So I'm going to take a little leap. I'm going to do this. And you guys pretty much, if I know it right, you left.
We just quit. Harry quit before I did. He quit before the Meat Mafia was even a thing.
Yeah.
But you got to do it.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Thank you.
And when I did that at Heart and Soil, it or for Heart and Soil when I left corporate America. I was in fintech at the time, and I was doing well. Had a good career, but I'd have to rewind a really long way to kind of tell the story on how all this kind of came together. But when I had met Paul in 2020 in a sauna,
really,
in
just
Austin,
randomly,
Texas. Yeah, pretty much randomly. I had there was a meetup maybe a couple of weeks before that I had joined. I didn't really talk to him, and then by chance ran into him at a sauna at the Ocean Lab in Austin, Texas, and I walked in the sauna. I'm like, hey, I know you.
Yeah.
I was probably the first person to buy your book.
Yeah.
I had a pre-order right away. We can get into that too. I mean, I was into the carnivore thing, but he was the first person. I mean, he's just brilliant. His ability to explain physiology and make sense of complicated things that you don't understand. When you've been programmed for so long to think, oh, red meat bad, if I go all in on this, then what about the cholesterol? What about this? What about that? Paul was the first person that took a scientific approach that could explain it in a way that I think a lot of people could understand, and it gave him confidence, right?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this is going to work. This is going to be okay for me. But anyways, I walked into a sauna. Paul's there, said hi. He had two guys with him. Doug and Dylan. Doug's our chief research officer who you've met. And, or wait, did I say Doug or Dylan?
Dylan.
Yeah, Dylan's chief research officer, Doug, chief operating officer. They're both in there. They were kind of in the beginning stages of getting things rolling, and ran into him again like a week later. And this kept happening. I kept running into Paul and Dylan and Doug. Pretty soon they showed me the product, and I offered to help, because I'm into this stuff. I was into health, into nutrition, into business. And I'm like, whatever I can do to help, you just let me know. I've got a career, I've got a job, I'm fine, but I want to help out. So I went all in, man. 3 months, and didn't ask for a thing, didn't get paid, but I was happy to be there.
And so you were in a fintech job, you had a great career, but it seems like you kind of felt like there was something more. What kind of compelled you to just be like, hey, I think there's something here. I'm willing to work for free and just help these guys out?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I had a good career. Wouldn't say great career. I spent 12 years in higher education before I made it to fintech. And that was a journey in and of itself. A lot of just incredible moments. That's where I kind of first built, I think, some skills in leadership, skills in management, because I ran pretty much a 3-pronged business within the university that did content creation, production, event production. And we were a profit center, so I had to turn a profit. And so, I had to look at business in a certain way. I had to manage budget. I had to hire people. I had to, make sure the team was aligned, those types of things. But at the university, and also in fintech, but at the university, I felt like there was something missing. And I'd always been drawn to health and fitness partly because I suffered from ulcerative colitis for a while. Always saw myself as an athlete, and I kind of got into the different optimization things you could do and exercise. And I would always get hurt too. That's a whole other topic. I'm very
100 personality.
Very accident prone. I guess I told you earlier, I don't have it's not a dial for me. It's not like, 3 intensity, 5, 10's like max. Mine's like on, off.
Yeah.
It's either I'm at 100 or 0.
And there's no other option for you.
There's no other option. And it's good because it's great in competition. But, when it comes to like, hey, these small things matter every single day that stack on top of each other, I go a little too intense, too fast. And
what were some of the early things that you were helping the team out with? Was it kind of like managing the budget and the profit center and stuff like that?
Yeah, good question. So, kind of back to fintech, something was always missing. I always thought I had an entrepreneurial spirit. My dad was an entrepreneur. He started a business out of our garage when I was younger and like built it. And so I was always around it. And my uncle was an entrepreneur and his dad was. And so I kind of always, it probably formed some of my self-identity, okay, I want to be a tinkerer. I want to figure something out. I want to build something. And I always thought if I can combine my interests in health, fitness, in business, and storytelling and marketing, because I was a content creator for a long time, then that would be like the perfect thing for me. And so, yeah, when Heart and Soil came up, I just jumped right in. And some of the things I was doing in the beginning, actually day one, I was packing supplements into the packages with our social media manager, Melanie. It was kind of funny. I was on a conference call with the marketing team at the fintech and had it on mute, and I'm over here packing supplements.
Yeah.
Every so often unmute. Oh yeah, it sounds great.
Back to me. Yeah.
So I was doing that, but over the course of a couple of weeks, I'm pretty nosy. Sometimes I want to know kind of how things are working, how things are constructed. Started noticing things that we could improve, and started talking to Dylan and Doug more about this or that, what the challenges were. And it was nuts. It was like, Reid Hoffman has this quote, building a business sometimes like jumping off a cliff and then building a plane on the way down.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was like. It literally, Paul had built an incredible following with a lot of trust because his information just on point, interesting. He's an excellent orator. So, he had built this audience, a lot of trust, and there was demand for this thing. So when the business launched, there's thousands of people emailing you, and there's products going out, and you can imagine having like 0 systems in place. How do you respond to this many people? How do you make sure your products don't go out of stock? How do we build, a really solid supply chain? Everything, the management of the people and schedules. In the beginning, we were all working like around the clock.
Wow.
It was, for me, I was juggling the corporate job, but plus doing mornings. I was waking up super early, like working before work, and then on my lunch break, working in the evenings, working on the weekends. And it was just a grind. So I'd say probably the most value offered in the beginning there is because I had a lot of skill and expertise in like data systems and workflows and just trying to untangle messes. So that's kind of the role I played, is I would untangle messes and find better ways of doing things. And eventually we started smoothing everything out. We built a really solid foundation.
What gave you the confidence to finally pull the trigger and just go all in on it? Was it pretty clear that Heart and Soil was going to take off at that point?
It was, and it wasn't. I had conversations with my wife about it. Maybe a couple of weeks into working, Dylan and Doug were like, "Dude, we gotta get you over here. We gotta get you on the team."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Well, you guys, we're not really in a position to hire me right now. I'm fine. I'm happy to help." And but that's when I started thinking about it. I'm like, I want to do whatever's possible to be working here and to do this. But I didn't expect that to happen. I wasn't, really sure. But yeah, I talked with my wife about it, and at first she's like, "Dude, you're nuts. You're nuts."
Yeah.
But then I think she realized, because I was always the weird guy in the office. I'm the guy cooking steaks in the break room with an air fryer.
Oh yeah. Doing
push-ups when the coffee maker's filling. People are like, "What is this guy doing?"
Yeah.
I'm doing body squats in the bathroom stall before I take a poop. So I think my wife realized, like, oh, this is like some place that he can go where all of his interests are aligned and that he can thrive.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, my wife does very well for herself as well. It was like, it's fine, no big deal. We didn't have kids at the time. And so I was like, I'm going to jump in and do this. And we talked earlier about this exercise of like visualizing yourself as a 80-year-old person and just thinking, anytime I have a decision, I kind of do that. I fast forward into time, and I kind of do like the second, third, fourth, fifth level thinking, like, if this happens, then this might happen. Okay, I'm this old, I'm looking back at it. What does that look like? How do I feel about that? What would happen if I didn't do that? And I went through that thought process, and it was clear to me. I was like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
Like, this is one of those moments that, and I've fallen short before in the past where I haven't given something like my best effort. And then down the line, it stings, it hurts. And I'm like, I'm not letting that happen to this one. I'm going in, I'm giving it 100%, and I'm not going to have any expectation attached to the outcome. I'm going to see what happens.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just jumped in.
That's incredible. And clearly, like, this is the cloth you're meant to be cut from. And I feel like God shows you signs of what you're supposed to be doing along the way. So whether it was like you healing yourself holistically with UC, which we could get into, and then also like you're cooking steak in the air fryer, you're doing push-ups, body weight squats, but you're working this fintech job, but you're like, all right, but I have this business skill set, but I also have this passion for health and wellness. Then you keep bumping into Paul, Dylan, and it's like, that's not a coincidence too. So it was almost like Heart and Soil was like the perfect marriage of both of your skill sets, where it's like, you're an incredible operator and you have the passion for health and wellness too. Like, that makes so much sense. But then at the same time, you have a wife, you're thinking about having kids in the future. Like, all right, well, is there actually money here for me to do this and be able to support my family too? I'd imagine it's probably a pretty difficult situation to be in at the time.
Yeah, it was. It was a little uneasy. My wife was like, I don't know if you should do that. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. But I don't know. I had this feeling that if we can just do this the right way, there is really no right way, but if we can do this with our values attached, and that's what was cool, like Doug, Dylan, Paul, every single person in that room that was helping, even the people that were packaging the supplements, live this lifestyle. And they've gone through some kind of trial and tribulation to get where they're at. And they understand how powerful of an intervention organs can be,
right?
Or simple lifestyle interventions. And so that's where I had a lot of confidence, because I'm like, you know what? We just have to tell this story.
Yeah.
And I know how to do that. I did that for my whole career. I told stories, right? In video format. And so I'm like, there's never been a better opportunity to do this. So I figured this is going to go well.
Yeah. You said your wife says you're a people collector?
Yeah, she does.
Would you say that's kind of your superpower, having, 3 years ago joined Heart and Soil and built out this amazing team? Like, if you ask people in town who know Heart and Soil's team,
everyone,
it's like, they're just amazing people. They all hang out together. They genuinely like each other. It's just a great crew. And then when you go out to the office, you guys are all just like hanging out, grilling. Like, it's really just this cohesive crew. So I'm just like curious, is that the thing that like you think you're bringing to the table the most as a CEO?
That's an interesting question. So I am a people collector. And what I mean by that is, like, I love meeting people and talking to people. If I go to a wedding, you'll see me in the corner talking to the 67-year-old guy no one else is talking to. And I'm getting this incredible story about what he did in his life and where he messed up. And I just love hearing it,
Yeah.
And when I meet interesting people, I try to keep them in my life in some kind of way, right? But I'd say with the team, I think I do have a good read on people. That's an interesting question. Part of it, I think, is that people in this community, people that have taken control of their health and they take responsibility for their self, I think those types of people generally are going to get along.
Yeah.
Right? They're processing their world in a certain way. And with the team, like I said, everybody lives this lifestyle and they've overcome something. So there's something embedded in the culture where everybody has that in common. And we call that our passion, right? Like, we don't hire anybody who doesn't live the lifestyle and doesn't have this need inside of them to want to tell this to other people, right? So that's, I'd say, from a CEO perspective or a business perspective, like, you have to understand what it is that you're doing in the world and why you're doing it. And you have to figure out what that through line is and bring people that have that around the same table and don't compromise on that. And that's a difficult thing as businesses grow, right? You require more specialization, and sometimes it's easy, as a decision maker to be like, well, you're we really need this one thing because it's going to generate this much revenue. So let's just maybe this time we'll compromise a little bit here and we'll bring this person in. And in my opinion, that's like the worst thing to do. So the superpower is, I think, sticking to your guns on those types of things and sticking to your value system and your mission and your passion and your niche and where you fit in the marketplace and using those as a lens to make decisions through.
It's so good. Dean, I'm just curious. So how long did it take for you in the early days where you're just helping out for free? You're volunteering in the morning, nights, weekends, you're busting your ass. How long did it take from those early days until you like officially joined the team full time?
It might've been, let's see, 3-4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So not a huge amount of time.
Not a huge amount of time. No. And like it was like a full-time job anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was just like, I can't keep doing this. Right. Like I was burning myself out.
Yeah.
It was exciting, but yeah, I was burning myself out. And it was kind of to a point where Paul and Dylan, Doug, everybody kind of involved was like, we got to get him on as soon as possible, you know? So yeah, it was pretty cool.
What was the feeling like? You sign on the dotted line, contracts there, you go to the fintech, you give them your 2 weeks notice. Do you remember kind of like what that feeling was like?
I do. Yeah. I love the people that I worked with at the fintech place. So, you know, there's always that departing, you know, something that's kind of familiar in the relationships and stuff. But it was also during COVID. And it's interesting. I think sometimes I wonder if it wasn't during COVID, if it would have been a little bit different. I don't know. But what's interesting with COVID, when COVID came around, right? Like all these companies moved to remote only. And what I experienced there with the remote work, one, I hated it. I was like, I'm not meant to sit in the same room. I felt like I was in Groundhog Day.
It's brutal.
It was terrible.
So bad, right? And like, I don't understand, but people want that to be normal. It doesn't, I just think there's something missing there. And that's partly why Heart and Soil is an in-person company, because I think it's important. But yeah, it was during COVID and I was feeling a bit disconnected anyway from kind of the culture of the place. And they had a brilliant culture. When I was at the university, I experienced just this bureaucratic environment and this different type of system. And I always say I got a PhD in what not to do, right? And when I went to the fintech company, I was looking for a place that was led in a certain way, that didn't just put their values on the wall. You know, they made their decisions through them. They were aligned. And, you know, there were 400 people there that were marching to the beat of the same drum, and it was great. So I got to experience that. But yeah, during COVID, the remote days, it just kind of like, I could feel it kind of deteriorating. I can't remember what your original question was, but
I was just asking you like how long from when you started to, oh, sorry. You know what I was asking you? What was the feeling like when you actually gave in your 2 weeks resignation to fintech?
Dude, it felt great. It felt great because like I said, I didn't know how this thing was going to go. I just knew that I'm like, if I put all my effort into this thing and everyone around me, I love these people who are here and they're putting all their effort in. I was like, and this shit works. Like this shit actually works. Like I take this stuff. It helps my health. It has to help, you know, other people who are suffering and people don't know about it. So yeah, man, I was stoked. I was like, let's effing go.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I remember with Harry, because I was mentioning how Harry had quit his job long before I did. And, you know, we were seeing a lot of the progress with the show and the brand, but we were just starting to make money. And I think I had this like, I just thought in my head, you know, we're going to be perfectly, I'm going to supplement all the money I was making in my corporate job through Meat Mafia. I'm going to quit. It's going to be really clear. And it wasn't, the money was a little bit slower, but the brand was going really quickly. And I remember it was right around this time last year, I was talking to Harry. I was like, do I do it? We were going back and forth. And he was eventually just like, he's like, dude, do you really think that if we put all of our effort into Meat Mafia, we're really going to fail? He's like, would you really bet against the two of us? And I was like, fuck, that's a really good point. But it reminds me of what you just said, because it sounds like you felt those similar emotions. You could see what Heart and Soil could be. And that was kind of like the catalyst that pushed you to be able to quit your job too.
Yes, 100%. I was confident in it. And if you rewind a little bit too, you know, like I spent a while health coaching. I went through the Primal Health Coach Institute. I did personal training for a while on the side. I tried starting up a few different health businesses, but I was 100% sold on board with this ancestral view. And I knew, I just knew people need this in their life. And I knew that I wanted to do something about it. This just seemed like the perfect vessel for me to hop on and carry that out. So yeah, man, I was over the moon stoked and also tired. I mean, starting a business it's not easy.
Yeah.
Growing a business isn't easy. It took a lot and still takes a lot of sacrifice.
Yeah, your story reminded me just of a thought that I've been having a lot lately, which is just the idea of belief in general. And I don't think I felt it at all during my corporate job, but the further you get to the fringe, the more you have to start developing that serious belief in yourself, what you're doing. And if you don't have it tied to something that you actually believe in, I couldn't imagine doing something I don't actually truly believe in. But when you do believe in it, it's like this compounding force of like, I want to tell everyone about this, exactly what you're saying. It's like these people that you're hiring are like, they're missionaries, but they truly believe what they're saying. And that's like the DNA of a really solid brand. Someone, like people who actually care.
100%, man. Yeah. If you ever read a sales book, it's very hard to sell something if you don't believe in it.
Yeah,
totally.
And people see through the bullshit too.
They really
can
do.
tell. Yeah.
And if you're willing to work for free, that's also a good sign that you've probably found what you're supposed to be doing too.
Yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah.
So did you go in as the CEO, or was it a different title that they gave you when you first started?
It was a different title. I came in as CMO. So, but I mean, titles in the beginning stage, they're really worthless because you're doing everything. But I primarily focused on the marketing side of the business, but was working, with operations. I was actually answering customer emails, for a while and doing that. Paul we didn't really have a CEO. You could say Paul. Before Paul moved to Costa Rica, he was in Austin during that time. And so, I mean, it was Doug Dillon, Paul and I meeting a few times a day, whiteboarding stuff, talking about stuff, trying to tame the chaos. But yeah, I was the CMO, and shortly after, it didn't take too long. It was like end of 2020, beginning of 2021. Paul went to Africa on his trip to visit the Hadza, and he asked me, "Hey, I'm gone. You want to be in charge?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine. We're all in charge anyway. No big deal. Like, we're not going to drop any balls." So he went and came back, and shortly after, there's actually a really good story. A lot of times founders get in their own way. They'll start a business and they might not necessarily love doing the business part, right? And they'll force it, and it'll cause problems. And Paul recognizes, he was like, "You know what? I love researching. I love podcasting. I like talking about this. I like spreading this message. If I'm sitting here looking at Gantt charts and operational, supply chain workflows, this is not a good use of my time, right? Like, I'm more valuable spreading this message and being on the front lines in that way." And so, he asked me, he's like, "Dean, we want you to lead the company. We want you to take over and be CEO." Wow. And from that day forward, he went to Costa Rica, got the keys, and I'm like, "All right, let's do this."
Were you surprised when he made you that offer?
Yeah, I was. I really was. I wasn't even like thinking. It wasn't even in my psyche, right? And so I was like, "Oh, okay. This is interesting. This will be challenging," right? Again, when I started with Heart and Soul, I had zero experience in e-commerce. But I wanted the challenge of it. And so it was an easy decision for me. I was like, "Let's do it. Let's go." Like, I will do my very best job. I think I told him one time, I was like, "I'll be the best damn CEO in the world. Like that's
so
what I'm trying
up.
to do. Yeah, I was just fired up. And obviously like you can talk that way, but it really comes down to your actions, and made a ton of mistakes. You know, you got to keep learning, got to keep growing. And that's really the name of the game, no matter what position you're in. Right.
Do you remember, oh, sorry, I just cut you off. What were you saying?
I was just going to say, you got to keep progressing, got to keep growing, learning from your mistakes.
You're getting me too juiced up. I'm getting too trigger happy asking questions right now. I got to relax.
Ask them.
No, I mean, you could tell it's just cool for us. Cause it's like, obviously huge fans of the brand. Now with Noble, it's like, we're in those early founder shoes too. So it's like, we're both just asking you questions. Cause you know, partially selfishly, it's like, well, we want to know this stuff too. Right. Cause we're in your shoes probably like, 2+ years ago.
Yeah.
Do you remember what your monthly revenues were when you like took over as CEO at the time?
I'm going to draw a blank. I can't really remember.
But obviously way smaller than what it is, because it's a $50 million business now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It was way smaller. I mean, I remember in the beginning, we'd have days where like, oh, we made, $2,000. We made, okay, 6,000. Right. And like one day, $100.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, we've had these moments where, we hit like a $10,000 day mark and a 20, and it's been kind of cool to see that grow, and not really because of the money, but just understanding that this is adding value in the world, and that people are discovering this. And the way I look at it, like our mission statement is to provide the highest form of nutrition that the world has to offer, and to inspire and guide people to radical health. So when we make money from our products, then we can really focus on spreading, like take that and push it back into spreading this message further, into building ways to help guide people, right? Because it doesn't end at the product. Like we have a team of folks who are dedicated to answering people's questions and to help remove roadblocks in their life when it comes to their health. And we've got some things that we're working on there, but yeah, it's just cool seeing it grow and being able to say, hey, this is successful and it's working and it's helping people, and we can take some of this money and try to spread it further. We produce films. We produce one on animal-based pregnancies. We got another one.
That one was amazing.
It was so good.
Yeah.
Little birdie told me we might be doing one on seed oils.
Oh yeah.
At some point.
Is Cade going to be getting involved with that one?
Oh yeah.
He's so good.
He's a talent.
He's another guy.
He's a
long
wizard.
time ago. Man, he's so good. Yeah. Great storyteller, good cinematographer, good editor. He's solid. And that was my, my line of work back then. And it's just crazy how talented he is at his age.
I remember the first time we saw the documentary that you guys did, Nourishment. Brett and I were just blown away. We were like, this is some of the best information we've seen out there. And it was a twist on a lot of it was kind of an evolution in, I think, what this whole ancestral health movement had been talking about. It like took things a little bit further, where it's like, we're talking about like the next generation of people here and actually compromising their health if we continue to eat this standard American diet. So it was amazing.
Yeah.
That's cool. Appreciate
and what
that.
other CPG brands are doing documentaries and having podcasts and stuff like that? Was that something early on that you knew that you'd ultimately want to do, is like really be like a content leader and a thought leader in the space?
Yes, 100%. That's actually part of the struggle in the beginning, like part of the challenge. So there's a lot of pressure sometimes with new brands, like, oh, you need to go all in on Amazon, right? And we had discussions about this. All you have to do is set up an Amazon business, and you use your PPC campaigns, and you spend your money in your ads, and then there's a model there.
Yep.
And I had a lot of conversations with Doug specifically about this and Dylan, but I was like, bro, if we're going to change the world, we got to do the hard shit. Like we have to build a brand, and we almost have to create a media company, right? Because in order for us to inspire people, I'm not about like telling people what to do, right? And I think too many brands make the mistake sometimes where they try to act like, oh, I'm the hero in the story, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you have to do. That stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work with trying to truly change like how people live and the behaviors that they change, like you need to inspire them first. You need to plant a seed that might make them question something or might make them look at something in a different way. So I kind of thought, to do this right, to build a business that will probably last a long time and be anti-fragile, we can't rely on paid acquisition campaigns solely. We need to create a media empire of sorts, and we need to figure out, how do we do this? How do we inspire people? How do we guide people? And how do we get these products into people's hands? And I thought, if we can figure that out, if we can get traction with our content, if we can get traction, which is only going to happen if it's valuable. We have to make valuable content that makes a connection with somebody and essentially inspires them to act. But if we can do that, then yeah, we're going to be successful. But that's the hard stuff that a lot of brands have trouble executing on. And it takes sometimes a lot of money to do it, right? Like to produce a film, you said that earlier, you don't see many other brands doing that. And I actually got a couple weird looks at a little D2C meetup when I was like, yeah, we're doing a podcast and we're putting a film out there. Like, what?
Yeah.
What are you doing? I'm like, I think it's important.
So this kind of goes back to your experience as a videographer and like someone who's actually been in the content creation space for over a decade. This reminds me of that saying, like, kind of like overnight success, or like, you have this experience that you've just been doing for a long time, and then you're able to like oddly apply it to this brand. And it's kind of like the key to success. Was there anything that you feel like you specifically brought with you from that storytelling capacity back when you were working on films and things like that, that clicked and you were just like, this is actually like something I have conviction around that we should just really go after?
Yeah, that is a great question. There's probably a number of angles to this. The short answer is yes. One thing that I brought from just my background there, and I dove into the world of marketing and storytelling for a really long time, and I've always loved this concept. There's an author called Donald Miller. He wrote a book called Story Brand. And positioning yourself as the guide in the hero's story. I've always just loved that because, when I look at our brand and when I look at, the people out there who are suffering, who need help, like they're the real heroes, right? Like we talk about this thing of radical health, and I think to truly have radical health, it's like you are realizing your full potential and there's harmony there and you're thriving, right? And there's so many people who aren't there. And if they are there, they're doing heroic things. They're playing with their grandchildren, when they're 70. They have energy to support their communities and the people around them. And so I just love that positioning. I'm like, that's why we're here. We're here to be the guide. We're here to help guide the hero through their journey. And I really like that tie into radical health. And to me, it makes it, I don't know, just meaningful, right? So that's one thing that I pulled, from my old days in content creation. Generally, even a documentary I worked on, like, I always kind of take that guide type of angle. And it's true. Like people don't like being talked down to. People don't like being told what to do. So I'm like, let's just guide them. Yeah. The other thing, this is more of like a mental model, I think, or framework that I think has been really valuable. But when I used to be an editor, what I loved is decision making. You'd sit down and you'd have 2 hours of video clips, and you have to ask yourself, like, what do I want to get out of this? If somebody watches this, how do I want them to feel? What do I want them to do? What do I want them to know? Right? So you have to ask yourself those questions, and then it's simply a decision-making process of figuring out there's 29.97 frames or 23.976 frames in a second. Those are all pictures. How do I compose this thing in a linear fashion? Because, movie or video is linear in fashion. You watch it from the start to the end. What decisions do I make and what tools do I use to accomplish that? And I just love that. I love going through all the source footage and putting it in a sequence and figuring out, what? Graphics are a tool. Audio's a tool. The video is a tool. How you capture something, the angle is a tool. All of it is. And so stay with me here.
Yeah.
It's a mental model to look at things through. And so when we look at the business, when we look at a problem, it's the same questions. It's like, what do we want to get out of this? What do we want people to feel? What do we want them to know? What tools do we have? A tool might be a sales channel, right? A tool might be an ad. A tool might be a movie, might be a documentary. It might be a frontline communication with a customer. And so I kind of like looking at things in that way. And I think it helps kind of like take you out of like being emotionally attached to something too. You just look at it like a big toolbox. It's like, what do I use for this?
Yeah, that's really cool how you were able to take some of these nuggets, in your past life, and you're actually able to apply them as a, CEO of an e-commerce business. That's really interesting. I'm just curious, Dean, for you, are there any like daily habits or non-negotiables, whether it's like, personal life, health, or even just as like a business leader that you do every day as to make you feel like the best version of CEO of Heart and Soil that you can be?
Yeah. Damn, that's a good question. I have dropped the ball in this area many times through this journey at Heart and Soil. As we all do sometimes, right? Like
Totally.
You get into routine and then you get out of routine. My fault sometimes is that work isn't work to me. It's something that I truly love and enjoy. And I'm not just saying that. Like, you can ask anybody on the team. Sometimes people will be like, hey, Dean, you need to eat. Because I'll go in at 5 a.m. and then it's 6 p.m. and I'm still like trying to get something done, or I'm trying to think through a problem. And I'm kind of white. Like I said, it's an on and off switch for me. So what I've had to do is be very intentional, and purposeful is actually one of our, one of our core values at Heart and Soil. And it's an area that I'm like, all right, I need to be a little bit better with my habits, especially during work. It's easy to work all day. So a few things that I do that I've been doing for a while. So when I wake up now, I drink about 16 ounces of water with salt. I do that right off the bat. I get 25 minutes of my feet on the real ground when the sun comes up. 3 times a week, I cold plunge. I use the sauna 4 times a week. That goes a long way in the morning. I feel pretty good when I do that. My brain's working a little bit better, especially after a cold plunge.
Oh my gosh.
Holy
Such
cow.
a game changer.
Harry will do it at like 7 at night. We're going to go to like the coffee shop. He's like, I got to go cold plunge really quick.
It's amazing.
It's better than a
That's your
coffee.
switch. Yeah.
Yeah. I get you guys are going to laugh, but I get a foot massage.
Do you?
Yes.
Is that what we need to be doing? Foot massages?
Dude, I have a weekly foot massage at this place down by my house. I'm telling you, I just zone out for an hour. And I had to start doing that because I recognized, well, I'm spending a lot of time in action and doing, but there's a reflection piece that has to occur if you're, going to learn from your mistakes, or, learn from a project that you did in the past. So yeah, I do that every week for an hour, and I just turn on some Zen, just like in the earphones, and I sit back and I just let my mind wander. And I've been doing this other thing recently. You guys probably know more about this than I do, but it's like a visualization type technique. And I was actually talking, Steve, the host of the Radical Health podcast. He's been on your podcast too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
he has.
I need to listen to that one. Anyway, I was talking to him. He's like, oh yeah, that's a visualization exercise. And I'm like, okay, cool. But I've started to do this thing where I revisit the past. So I'm getting that foot massage, I'll think back. I'm like, what was my high school like? Oh, you know what? That's interesting. The texture on the bricks. What was my locker combo? And I'll like visualize myself opening the locker. Or, this happened once because I walked into a room that smelled like my grandpa's old boat that I, grew up on. I grew up on the water up in Michigan, and it just took me back to that boat. And I started seeing pictures of it. And I was like, holy cow, this has been so long since I visualized this. And I found it to be really kind of joyful to walk through your old house, to walk through the trail, that I used to walk to the baseball field. That's really, I don't know, it's just been fun. It kind of calms my mind down too. I tend to have a lot on my mind. And if I get in that space and go back, Steve recently challenged me to start doing that, looking into the future. So let's say I'm going on a podcast. I might sit down, I might visualize the room, might visualize the conversation. I'm going to keep kind of working on that skill set because I think it's valuable. Used to do it before football games. Yeah.
It's amazing how that context of sports helps with that visualization component. Like we both played baseball, and I would remember stepping into the batter's box, having thought, I'm going to hit the piss out of this ball, and first pitch, ripped it. Like there's just something to the process of getting your head in that space, and you can use it for anything. Like you can use it before you go talk to a girl. Like get yourself in the right headspace. Like millions of applications to it. But do you meditate at all? Like is that kind of meditative for you too? Like
I would probably put that in the category of meditation for me. I've dabbled with it. I've tried it. I've not gone like deep down, into the meditation rabbit hole, but I do sit in silence for like 15 minutes and I try to clear my mind and focus on my breath. I do. Actually, that's another habit. I box breathe every night before I go to sleep, and I notice I go to sleep much faster. 4 seconds in, hold 4 out, hold 4 in. I do that every night, and it really helps.
Yeah, so you have some of these, like we call them self-care practices that prime you to be the best version of yourself. But also what I'm hearing you say, like I feel like you're so passionate about what you do, even though you guys are absolutely crushing it, I also kind of get the sense that you just like enjoy being in the trenches and just grinding. And I've been thinking about this with what Harry and I are doing with Noble and the Meat Mafia, and like there's a time and a place for like a lot of the optimization, biohacking stuff. And I think there's also like part of the reason why we build up really good health is so you have resilience. So like maybe it's like, hey dude, for the next 3 months, like I'm not going to be going to the gym like, all the time, or like, maybe sometimes I have to order out food every once in a while, or like maybe I'm only going to get 4 hours of sleep tonight, but it's like, you're almost like sacrificing your body short term for like this greater mission too. And that's why you should be healthy, so you can actually do stuff like that.
Spot on. Yeah. Right? I have trouble with that. Like I can't, I shouldn't say I can't, but I can. I love the chaos sometimes. Like getting into the trenches and figuring it out. When I used to edit video, actually, it was hard for me to get on a pace to where I could do like certain types of editing every single day at the same time. And I started to realize, you know what, like I'm like one of these batshit crazy creative people that sometimes I need to stay up all night, and I get in this zone and I can just make magic happen. And I can't reproduce that if I try to stick to boundaries during a regular week, or I couldn't. I would just need to have a little bit of that pressure of the deadline and then stay up all night and just crush it. And some of my best work happened, during those moments. Same thing happens still, I'll have a problem that I'll stew on in my mind for a long time. I'll try to work it out. And then, I have to kind of like not sometimes put rails on it. I have to kind of step into the chaos and get a little wild.
You guys might need to have a cigar brainstorming night. You got to tell Dean about this.
You got a story?
I mean, I relate to the way that you work, because there's nights where I'll literally just have like a moment of inspiration, and I'll just like walk to the 7-Eleven, get a cigar, and I'll be smoking a cigar at like 11 o'clock, and I'll stay up till like 4 a.m. just working on something. And I am locked in, and I'm like, this is just getting done. and it's usually my best work. Like late at night, quiet, no one's bothering me.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I wonder where that comes from sometimes. Like I try to think back, like college, I was like kind of a late night person, but also like would get up early and do stuff. So I think I'm the type of person when my back's against the wall is when I fight. So like, I think that's when I feel that like, okay, it's time to like get in there.
Same with me.
Yeah.
I need the pressure of deadlines and things like that. Constraints help a lot. Sometimes I have to make them up because I won't take it seriously because I know like, oh, I could do that later, but I'll have to like trick my mind. Like, oh no, there's a sense of urgency here.
Yeah.
This is why. And I'm like, oh, okay. Gonna do it.
Yeah.
You know, even if it's just a challenge to myself, like, yeah, Dean, I challenge you to get this done by the end of the day. Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll get it done then.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. You got to play mental games sometimes.
It's like it reminds me of like Michael Jordan in his documentary where he would just like pretend that people would talk shit to him or something like that, just so he would play better. Yeah. It's like, just brings out the best in him.
Yeah. It's easy at Heart and Soil to get a sense of urgency because I just think about all those people out there who are a little bit lost who need to hear this. Yeah. And that fires me up. Yeah. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this tonight.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up was how cool your guys' office was when you guys were talking about kind of lifestyle things. And it seems like you guys have curated this office that promotes health, but it's so different than any other office that I've seen. You guys have a gym, a jiu-jitsu mat,
cold plunge,
grill outside, cold plunge, everything. So it must be easy for your team to just like enjoy the flow of the day, get a bunch of work done, be creative. And I love that approach to just like, hey, curate your lifestyle. Like if you can be healthy, if you just like have the things in your life and make it easy.
Dude, 100%. I was thinking the other day, we had a job interview with somebody in, and I spent a lot of time with this person over the course of the day. And I got home and I got out of my truck and I'm, barefoot. I looked down and I just looked at my feet for a second. And I was like, I was barefoot the entire time with this candidate who, never met me before, never been at the company, and probably half the team was barefoot too. And I was kind of thinking how weird it would be if I were to just tell someone that isn't familiar with Heart and Soil or office, just like, oh yeah, I had a candidate here last week and I'm the CEO and I was in my bare feet, the whole time. It'd be the strangest thing in the world. It'd blow somebody's mind, right? Like, that's sick.
It's almost the perfect test to vet out candidates. Like anyone who's weirded out like that by that is not going to do well at Heart and Soil.
I know, really. It's so unique. It goes back to what I was talking about with like, I think this is a good business lesson, right? You need complete alignment with your mission and your passion and your values. And so, when you're thinking about kind of your culture or like, how you want to grow that, you have to be very intentional. And this goes down to everything from your compensation philosophy to your benefit philosophy to, how you collaborate, amongst the team, what you offer in terms of amenities at HQ. And for us, like our shared passion is to live this lifestyle and spread it up to others. So it would be insane for me to be like, okay, well, we're going to pick a corporate office in Austin, Texas. It's surrounded by concrete and everyone's going to wear business attire in here. And I'm like, no, like we need a place where our team can live out exactly what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. They can be barefoot. They can work in the sun. They can take a break to cold plunge, to sauna, to work out, to cook a steak. And so, we provide all that and encourage it. And I'd put our team up against almost anybody. I'm like, you try to compete with a healthy workforce, actual healthy, mind working right. I think is the greatest productivity hack in the world. People don't talk about it. They're trying to, save 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there. And I'm like, well, what if you got healthy and your brain worked right?
Yeah, that's incredible that you brought that up because Harry and I have been talking about that theme a lot the last couple months. We're so wired to think about food purely from a cost perspective. We always use the term, it's a holistic asset, but think about it just purely in the terms of like, compensation or what you could be doing from an output perspective if you get your nutrition and your health dialed in. So if you as the CEO or the founder are promoting that, like what is that going to do to your team and the overall productivity and what everyone's doing and accomplishing?
Dude, it'll 10x it. Like,
yeah,
I mean, the output gets better. The quality of it gets better. I would say the interactions get better amongst the team. The relationships grow, especially if you have kind of this culture where, you hire people who are accountable, to themselves for their actions and for their work, and they're not pointing the finger at other people.
Yeah.
I think that's important. People who have a bias for action, people who are resourceful, people who are disciplined, and have freedom through that, kind of like Jocko says. But yeah, I think if you have that mentality and people are healthy and clear-minded, problems get solved more quickly, problems are identified more quickly. Dude, it's what do you call it? It's not a hack. It's
amazing how much more consistently you show up too when you're healthy. Like you're much more reliable as a person who can just show up with the same energy every day.
Have you all, did you used to have kind of those 2 o'clock, 2:30 kind of crashes?
All the time.
When I worked in the corporate world, for sure, I was crushing coffees late into the afternoon. Yeah, I needed it.
You have that brain fog in the afternoon where you just kind of sludging through your work like, this sucks.
I remember one time, dude, I remember when I worked at AIG in the city, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was so tired. I literally went to take a shit in the stall and I put my head back like this and woke myself up because I was snoring so loud 30 minutes later. So yes, I know what you're talking about.
Doesn't it feel so good not to have that anymore?
It's incredible.
I know. I was in my 20s experiencing that and I thought what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do when I'm 40? If this is happening to me when I'm in my 20s, am I going to be sleeping all day when I'm 40?
Yeah.
It's good to feel that though. We recently had 2 young guys, they're 24. They've kind of carved out their own path, but both of them have really cool stories. One in particular just went through it in college, athlete, got injured, started drinking more. And then you could just see his story turn around, but he had to really feel the shitty aspects of not being where he wanted to be. And I think it's just a valuable piece of information, memory that you can keep in your head where it's you need to catalyze change somehow. And that usually comes from a place of a little bit of desperation. All right, this is not what I want to be doing.
100%. If you look at, the science of behavior change, people don't change unless they have a catastrophic event that happens to them or that happens to somebody close to them. Very rarely do people change if that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I sometimes wonder too, what people feel they might be unhealthy, but it is kind of their baseline. It's kind of their normal. I know a lot of people in my life that, I can tell they're not healthy and they're I feel good. I got plenty of energy. I can do what I need to do. But I wonder well, is that your true potential? What if you were 20% healthier? What would your energy feel like? And, what would you be able to do and to accomplish? So there, I don't know how to get through that problem.
I know.
But yeah.
Diet and nutrition is such a powerful tool in that way though. Cause when you do see the results and feel the results, I felt it when I went keto and I was within 5 days felt the energy uptick and I was this is different. This is actually a real change. So you just feel the incentive to just keep doing it.
Yeah. It's nice when you feel that. I think that also helps people stick to things, right?
Definitely.
You gotta see or feel some results. That's what's cool about the organs too, right? If you're deficient in B vitamins and you eat an ounce of liver, you're going to be buzzing.
Yeah.
You literally get a buzz afterwards.
Yeah, you feel it. So that's a cool thing with the product too. Cause you can give somebody a couple capsules and they can try it and they're like, I actually feel this. And you're like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty soon they buy it. And then pretty soon they learn, they get into the ecosystem. They read the newsletter, and then pretty soon they're cold plunging and eating more steak, and they've gotten rid of the seed oils and they're feeling much better.
Yeah. That's one of the things we love about the overall brand and the mission behind you guys is you very humbly admit, like, it's the liver capsules isn't the end all be all. It's a bridge product to all these other things. It's like a very nuanced take that you guys have. It's like, no, you're not trying to replace raw organ meats or all these other things. It's like, take this supplement, you're going to feel really good, and it's going to be a gateway to all these other things that happen, whether it's, grounding, cooking all your meals, sauna, cold plunge, there's all these other things that you can pull on, but maybe it just starts incorporating liver capsules as the first thing. And that's the catalyst to all this other change that can come. That was one of the things you mentioned to us when we first met you in your office. And we were like, oh, that's so interesting. We never thought about Heart and Soil from that perspective as like the catalyst to all this other change that could come from that.
Yes, exactly right. I've been thinking a lot about like, we want to change as many people as possible. Like we want healthy people out there. And I'm like, how do you do that? I mean, there's some segments of populations and people that are just so into what they've been told for so long, whether it comes to red meat or whether it comes to, plant-based foods, plant-based proteins, those kinds of things. And I'm like, how do we break through to them? How do we do this? And I had this epiphany one day. I'm like, well, what if we could just replace the multivitamin? What if that'd be cool in like 3 years from now or 5 years from now, if like taking, organs as a supplement or even as real food was the way that people got their micronutrients. That to me would be a really cool kind of first step. And it's almost impossible to sell the whole lifestyle to someone who has never been, who's never seen it, never touched it before. So that's kind of, in my opinion, I'm like, well, let's get them on the supplements first, get them to feel a little bit better. And then over time, they're going to be, they're going to see this information. They're going to be inspired to try new things. And then, you fast forward a couple of years, if they put some of the stuff into action, then they're going to be in a much, much better place.
And now you guys are in a position where, like, this week, you guys just got into Erewhon, which is incredible. Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
And I saw when Paul posted the video, it was the Heart and Soil in like the vitamin section. So now people actually physically have the choice. It's like they could go for the synthetic vitamin, or they could actually go for Heart and Soil organ supplements.
Yeah, that Erewhon's been a really cool project. It's the first time that Heart and Soil supplements has been like, on a shelf somewhere. And I'm hoping that we could potentially do that more, get these into, some grocery stores in small town America, or even in, different health marketplaces around the country. It'd be really neat. But yeah, it's been a cool partnership with them. They have the animal-based smoothie that Paul did. I haven't tried it, but supposedly it's pretty good.
It's unreal.
Yeah.
You just reminded me, one of my favorite parts about when we went out to visit you guys the first time we went out there was you had us all in a circle and you read a review of someone who had healed themselves or just had a really great experience with your guys' products. And that must be so cool coming from your experience, having healed yourself, and just hearing all these stories of people just figuring it out for themselves through the product that you're promoting, and you guys are leading this mission. Like, those little wins probably mean so much.
They mean everything. They help you get up in the morning to be able to go do your job, because it's hard. Where do I even start with this one? Like, I mean, you went through UC, ulcerative colitis, and so did I. And when there's been a couple times in my life where I've been hit with these bombshells, where it just kind of shook me, right? Made me question everything. And am I going to live long? What the hell's going on here? Like, I ripped my kidney open in high school football and was in the hospital for 3 days, bleeding internally, almost died. Dang. That's when actually the planes hit New York.
Same time?
2000, Yeah, 2001.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I was in the hospital watching that happen with my kidney ripped open. That was one time where I'm like, oh shit, how's this going to go?
Yeah.
Am I going to live? And I recovered, which was great. But the other time was, when I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and, knowing what that kind of feels like, and when you feel stuck, and when you don't want to take the medication and you feel the side effects and you don't quite know what to do, that sucks. It's not anything like that I wish on anybody to have to deal with that. But the reality is too many people, have that going on.
Yeah.
And it at the time for me, it consumed my brain, my mind, and it affected my day-to-day life. But when I figured it out and got through it, it felt amazing. It felt so good. I felt like, hey, I defeated something here, like something that was trying to take me down. And just seeing the customer reviews, all over the board, folks who couldn't get pregnant for 2-3 years, they're on fertility treatments and everything else, nothing works. And then, hey, they change their diet, they include organs in their diet, they take our supplements, and suddenly they get pregnant. And there's not one of those, there's probably hundreds of those. And it's just incredible knowing that we're helping guide people to radical health, to better health outcomes. It's really cool. Yeah. But we share those with the team every single week. We read a customer review. We have a live Slack channel where all of our reviews are actually piped in there.
Oh, that's amazing.
Really?
And so the whole team sees them. We talk about them. And again, customers, they're at the center of the story. They're why we're here. We're here to serve them. And it's nice, you guys are setting up a business and stuff. I think it's really good to keep your customers at the center of your story and get to know them. Pick up the phone, call 5 of your top customers on the list, get to know their names, share it with the team. Hey, bring one of them into HQ someday and cook them a steak. I think those things are really powerful and help everybody stay connected to like why we're doing what we're doing.
That's so cool. Actually, to Harry's point, the review that was shared when we came to the office was either a husband or a wife that was struggling for years to get pregnant, and they actually got pregnant after taking Heart and Soil for however long it was. And it's like, you're not just selling supplements, like you're helping someone give them the ultimate gift, which is the ability to actually have a family and have kids. Yeah. So to like constantly be refreshing that in your mind and your team's mind, it's like, that's the ultimate, like just push to keep crushing and doing what you're doing, because the more you guys grow, the more lives you're going to be able to change.
Yeah, 100%. I wouldn't even say it's overwhelming, but it still boggles. It's hard for me to even talk about it because it's just so overwhelming. I'm like, hundreds of reviews come in, every single week, and they're incredible. Psoriasis, eczema, gut issues, fertility, pregnancy, recovering from surgery. I mean, there's countless numbers of examples, and it's just really cool that we're helping to make a meaningful impact in somebody's life.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, and it's truly a testament to what you guys are doing and just like the culture that you guys have created. It's a powerful mission, an amazing team, and you guys just really like have this DNA that's like exciting to watch from the outside looking in, because you guys are clearly having a ton of fun, making a big impact. It's like truly enjoying the ride of like making positive change. So just love what you guys are doing, and just so appreciative of everything that you guys have done for us, and especially you coming on the show. We finally got you here, and just great convo, and just appreciate you, man. This is awesome.
Appreciate you guys too. This was fun. This was a lot of fun. And congrats on the new brand.
Thank you.
Let me know however we can help to support you guys. I told you guys earlier, like people ask me about competition a lot, and I do not consider you guys competition. I don't consider even any other organ supplement company competition. I'm like, hey, more of this stuff we can get out there, the better. So bring it on. Let's go.
We're going to come by and drop some off in the office for sure. Get everyone on the Noble train.
Love it.
Get you guys even more jacked.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Awesome, man. Well, we appreciate you, Dean. Thanks, dude.
Appreciate you guys too. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Dean.
All right.